Hi YouTube, Darth here. I've done a few videos now talking about armor and effectiveness of various armor loadouts. But what about if you're the infantry on the ground? A couple of you were wondering about a specific matchup between two popular direct fire launchers, the RPG and the SMAW. In this video I'll talk about the stats, benefits, and occasions where I might use the RPG over the SMAW and vice versa. First, let's look at some numbers for the two weapons. The RPG is billed as the powerful rocket-propelled anti-vehicle launcher capable of disabling even heavily armored vehicles from the sides and rear, while the SMAW is the high-speed, low-drag anti-vehicle launcher with flatter trajectory but lower damage than the RPG 7v2, most effective against the sides and rear of armored targets. And for the most part, they live up to their descriptions. So let's look at the damage numbers first. The RPG does 225 direct damage and 112 splash damage. The SMAW does 200 direct damage and 112 splash damage. So the RPG has a slight edge in direct damage and both do identical splash damage. For the RPG, a direct 90-degree shot will do up to 28% damage to the front of a tank, 35% to the side, and 55% to the rear. The SMAW will do up to 24% damage to the front of a tank, 30% to the side, and 48% to the rear. Keep in mind that these values are greatly affected by the angle of a soldier's shot on the armored vehicle. The greater the difference from 90 degrees, the less the damage. So the minimums are quite a bit different, particularly on tanks where armor is the thickest in front. However, against an infantry fighting vehicle, the launchers are not affected by which side is hit. All damage is treated the same. A direct 90-degree RPG shot will do up to 38% damage to the front, sides, and rear of an IFV. The maximum for the SMAW on each side is 34% damage. The minimums are similar to tanks. Now, there is a definite key distinction between the SMAW and the RPG when it comes to armor. It's all about light criticals and heavy criticals. Criticals slow or completely stop a vehicle for 10 seconds. A light critical will slow the armored vehicle to its crawl speed while a heavy critical will immobilize it. This is where the RPG has a definite advantage. Against a tank, per shot it takes 29% damage to inflict a light critical and 39% damage to inflict a heavy critical. If the tank has reactive armor, it is 5 to 10% more damage required. With reactive, it then becomes 39% for a light critical and 44% for a heavy critical, fully disabling it for 10 seconds. IFVs have the same thresholds. That's a lot of numbers to keep track of. The real difference is on tanks. What it comes down to is this: RPGs deliver more criticals at wider angles than the SMAW. If the tank has reactive armor, it is more difficult with the SMAW to light critical a tank with a side shot. Additionally, the number of rounds to kill a tank is 2 to 4 for an RPG and 3 to 5 for a SMAW. That translates into at least one additional reload time. Against the IFV and MAA, the two launchers are a bit more evenly matched. Neither launcher can inflict a heavy critical against the IFV. If the IFV or MAA has reactive armor, it is mathematically impossible to inflict any kind of critical using the direct fire launchers. That's because the threshold for a light critical is 39% damage, and at most the RPG does 38, and the SMAW does even less. The RPG requires 3 to 5 rockets to kill an IFV, while the SMAW requires 3 to 6. Now let's talk about splash damage. Both launchers do 112 damage, and that's just enough to kill infantry. This damage starts falling off at 0.35 meters and stops completely at 4 meters. So in order to get a kill shot in infantry, you need to land your rocket within 0.75 meters of an enemy on normal. On hardcore, this tolerance increases to about 2 meters. What the SMAW lacks in damage, it makes up for in speed and acceleration. The RPG starts at 30 meters per second and reaches a maximum velocity of 80 meters per second in roughly 1.25 seconds. The SMAW starts at 40 meters per second and it accelerates faster to its maximum velocity, which is quite a bit higher at 110 meters per second, which it reaches in about 1.5 seconds. The SMAW can hit distant targets much faster than the RPG, and there's another advantage as well: the drop. The RPG drops at a rate more than twice that of the SMAW. Because the RPG's flight time is longer than the SMAW, it also drops significantly more while traveling to the target. For the most part, you can point and shoot very distant targets with the SMAW and not have to elevate your fire very much. On the other hand, because the RPG is slow and drops substantially, you have to lead and compensate for gravity quite a bit with the RPG. In attempting to get footage for this video, I ended up shaving quite a few hairs off the tops of heads of infantry, as I'm much more accustomed to the drop of the RPG than the SMAW. The two launchers are nearly identical in terms of reload, with the SMAW clocking in at an even 5 seconds and the RPG at 4.8 seconds. In reality, the difference here is less than 5%, so unless you're spamming the fire button as quickly as possible, you're not going to see the big difference. As an engineer, I find I'm repositioning and going for cover so often between shots that a 0.2 second difference isn't going to mean much. But one place I did notice a difference in my limited testing was in quick swapping to save some reload time. Quick swapping in this sense means changing to a secondary to cut down on the reload animation time. You can shave some time off the RPG reload time. To do this, once you see the number in the bottom right corner change from a 0 to a 1, quickly swap to another weapon and then back again to be able to fire your launcher faster. On the RPG, I noticed about a 250 millisecond to 400 millisecond reduction in time to get a round off. With the SMAW and swapping, I saw either no benefit or a very small penalty to the reload time. Honestly, this is such a gimmick and so rarely useful that most players won't find any benefit to hyper-focusing on the timing as opposed to battlefield awareness. So then, which is the better launcher? I think it depends on the map, the player, and the situation. In general, I prefer to use the RPG on Conquest because it delivers more damage to armor, and if you can get accustomed to the drop and speed disadvantages, it's quite a bit more potent. With the SMAW, you pretty well give up on slowing tanks without near-perfect shots, and you become significantly less threatening to IFVs. The RPG is particularly effective on city maps where the short ranges don't really play well to the speed advantages of the SMAW. However, on large conquest maps with wide open areas, I think the SMAW becomes much more of a viable option, particularly because of its speed and very low drop. I find that without a bit of luck, the RPG just doesn't hold up at long range on a moving target. With the SMAW, you'll have that disadvantage against armor, but the speed makes up for it on these maps. Another place where the SMAW shines is when used against aerial targets, particularly helicopters. Because it's a tad bit faster than the RPG and it flies straighter, the SMAW is a better point-and-shoot utility for downing particularly annoying whirlybirds, combined with the AA mine for a nice disable shoot-down combination. Finally, if you're playing as an engineer on TDM, the SMAW is going to be a slightly better choice than the RPG. The fast SMAW is more difficult to get out of the way of than the RPG. Because they both have the same splash damage and radius, it really is just about delivering accurate damage to a target. That's it for this video about the RPG and the SMAW. What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new around here, please check out my channel and consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.